Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Welcome to the show. Quick programming note. Tonight, we are going to be broadcasting and anchoring the State of the Union address live. So it's around 6 o'clock Pacific and 9 Eastern tonight. We will be here for that. I hope you will as well. First, last night, what a beautiful disaster last night's caucus was. And Trump, as always, comes out with the win. The entire Democratic Party's in shambles, so why not their caucus night as well? And we told you yesterday, we said if the establishment of the Democratic Party's main person doesn't win, because leading up to the caucus, they're always like, oh, the Iowa caucus is the most important thing in the world. We can't wait. It's going to be so big. Really, it's going to lead the winner off into the next few primaries. It's so important. And then when it's not their guy, it's, Iowa's stupid. Iowa doesn't. It's really about New Hampshire. So here, we don't even know who won, but who even cares at this point? The whole thing got blown up, and now we're never going to know who won. What a ridiculous night. Now, before we even get to the specifics of the caucus, a quick note on the chaos. This is a tweet that's being sent around the interwebs. This is from NBC News. Breaking news, NBC News. Report, Joe Biden will drop out of the presidential race. Breaking news. Unbelievable. And then they sent this one out today. Editor's note. The above tweet is from 2008, not tonight. This is being noted because the tweet is being tweeted by some users tonight as if it's new tonight. Again, the tweet above is from 2008, not 2020. I can't believe he's still running. He was running again. So they had to correct the record. But just chaos, misinformation, nonstop everywhere. Now, on the caucus, you wouldn't think it'd be too hard. Write down the results on a piece of paper, call the front office, tell them the results. They write it down on a piece of paper. I'll give them some grace. Maybe it's a bit more complicated than that, but it shouldn't be this complicated. But don't worry though, they can totally run your healthcare. Government is so good at everything they do. They're just streamlined, efficient. What was the, yesterday we put the poster up of the Bernie, at the Bernie phone bank. There was a poster there. Remember there was like, I'm scared of socialism. And they gave them like the response that you should give. And one of them was, we just want the school system and the healthcare system to be reliable and effective. That's what it was, reliable and effective. Can't even figure out how to report the votes from a caucus. So here's the deal, here's the story. After 2016, the Democratic Party wanted to figure out a way to deliver the caucus results faster. So they came up with this app. Now the app was founded by a group called Acronym, in capital letters. So acronym is an acronym for something, I don't know what, but it makes me want to gag already. There's your first problem. The group is called Acronym. Acronym is a nonprofit organization committed to building power and lasting digital infrastructure for the progressive movement. All right, that's what Acronym is. So it's this Democratic Party digital group. They're the ones, among other things, they're the ones who built this app that the people in Iowa used to deliver the results of the caucus. The app is called, I'm not kidding, out of all the names in the entire world that you could have come up with, the app is called Shadow. You had to come up with the most nefarious, dark shadow. You had to call it Shadow. One of the top people in Hillary's campaign runs this app. David Plouffe, who was Obama's 2008 campaign manager, he's on the board of advisors. So it's all this insider stuff. Now, I want to reiterate this point. The app was designed to make delivering the results easier and faster. And like every single government project and program, the opposite happened. It made delivering the results more difficult and slower. Do you remember last week, we did a whole segment, maybe two, on how Trump's team is light years ahead, or was light years ahead of Clinton's team, and they're still light years ahead of the Democrats when it comes to digital advertising. Do you remember that segment? Remember Brad Parscale? We showed this guy's picture. We talked a little bit about him. He's a memorable face. Do you remember that? He was first of all, he started building websites for Trump, I think in 2011 for like the Trump winery. So he was like a normal guy building Wix websites. And then they signed him on for the campaign, and he was in charge of digital advertising. And it went so great, he's now the campaign manager for Trump's 2020 campaign. So this is the guy back in 2016 in charge of digital advertising, mostly on Facebook. And his team would come up with as many as 100,000 ad variations per day to try and get the most optimal and effective ads to reach the most disaffected voters. Absolutely crushed Hillary in digital advertising. And again, still way ahead of the Democratic Party. So we talked about that last week, remember? So check this out. I got this from Huffington Post this morning. Acronym, launched in the wake of the 2016 election, has become a growing part of the Democratic digital ecosystem. The group has raised tens of millions of dollars with a buzzy message about how the Democrats have fallen behind in digital advertising. In 2018, the group funded an onslaught of ads on platforms like Facebook and Google. So there you go, falling behind on digital advertising. And this is the best they came up with. Well, we saw it on display last night. This is what they got. 4 years later, they're still behind. It's beautiful. Now, in all seriousness, there has been a push for a long time now, and still today, for online voting. You can vote online or vote using some sort of app on your phone. What a terrible, absolutely terrible, terrible, terrible idea. First of all, I don't even agree with the premise that we should expand voting access. If you can't get up and get to a polling booth now, as it already is set up for you, I don't know what more we can do for you. We make every single possible step to make sure that you can, even if you can't physically make it to a polling station, we got absentee voting and mail-in ballots. If you still can't figure out a way to vote, if you're still too lazy to vote, whether it's early, you can vote for like weeks before the election in California at least. So you got early voting day, provisional ballot, mail-in ballot. You don't have to be a citizen in California. You don't have to show your ID. You don't have to do nothing. If it's still too difficult for you, I don't know what to do for you. I'm not going to go with online voting and all the risks that has to make it easier for you to vote. But could you imagine the havoc of online voting? Now, the Democrats love it. They love it, right? Because you don't have to bus in old people from nursing homes. You don't have to dig up any dead people. You don't have to truck in ballots that you've harvested for weeks prior. So the Democrats love this. But think about it. The root of the left's initial outrage against Trump in 2016 was that Russia what? Hacked the election. That's what they kept saying over and over and over again. They hacked the election. Now, they did no such thing. Russian assets spent a measly amount of money on some Facebook ads that convinced no one to change their vote at all. They didn't hack anything. They didn't hack any tabulations of votes. See the difference there? But they used that word hack. The Democrats kept using the word hack, creating the perception that Russia literally changed the vote, like how many people voted. By the way, I don't want to go to sidebar here, but that's one of the main reasons to have the Electoral College. If we had a single national popular vote, then Russia could just come in and put 10 million votes out of New York City or whatever, and there'd be no protection. But because we have different sections, 50 of them, an outside asset would have to hack many different states in order to have any real effect on the outcome. But that's just one of the main reasons that we should keep the Electoral College. But anyway, the Russians didn't hack anything. But imagine if we had online voting, or imagine if we do one day have online voting, then they absolutely could. Anyone could. This didn't get a lot of attention for whatever reason, but a couple months ago, 23 towns and cities in Texas were hacked, like governments were hacked and held for ransom. And the hackers, they'd break in somehow and they'd block access to the government computers until the ransom was paid. There's a big market for this. It happened in Texas. I think Baltimore paid $10 million to hackers. It happened it says Baltimore was a big one. It was Texas. Some other city paid like millions of dollars to these hackers to let them back into their computer systems. So could you imagine? There's a market for it, right? So could you imagine the hackers' ransom demands if they blocked the election results from a presidential election? And in that case, Russia could literally hack and change the outcome of the election, not just with a couple Facebook ads, but with actual votes. Voting should be very easy. I don't know why we have to make this so complicated. Maybe because we need the results now, right? We gotta know it right now, right away, because cable news needs to be able to have election-breaking results right at the moment. Everyone just chill out for a day, right? You go, put your name on a piece of paper, you write your vote, and then there's a paper trail, and we count the votes. And maybe it takes 24 hours before we figure it out. But we don't need to make this any more difficult than it currently needs to be. So that's from tonight, or last night. I'm sure we'll have lots more news coming up in the next couple of days here about it. But we have so much going on. Again, we got the State of the Union tonight. We're going to be anchoring that coverage tonight starting 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 Eastern. And then Wednesday is, what's Wednesday? Oh, the trial. So Iowa will be in the past. Everyone will forget about it by this afternoon. All right, I want to come up and, again, talk about how Trump just keeps winning everything. And the media, Trump won the Iowa caucus last night. The media can't help themselves falling into his traps that he set in 2016 over and over and over again. We saw them every single time he set a trap. We could predict it. We'd say, that's a trap. I bet the media is going to do this. And every single time they did it, and they still haven't learned their lesson. Again, it is a thing of beauty. We'll give you the latest example of that next. True story, Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, friendly reminder, tonight, State of the Union address, 9 o'clock Eastern. I will be anchoring. There's the fancy music and banner. Look forward to that tonight. We'll see what Trump does when he walks up to Nancy Pelosi behind the podium. Should be a lot of fun. So tune in tonight. We'll be here. So Trump absolutely controls the media. 100%. He's got them, every single one of them, in his pocket. He did it time and time again during the 2016 campaign. And they never learned their lesson. Then I thought they would learn their lesson this go around, but no, they haven't. And he's going to play them every single day once the real campaign gets going again. So there's a million ways, but let's just focus on 2 ways real quick. So first, Trump with his nicknames. He gets to frame, people just think it's funny or it's even juvenile. If you don't like Trump, you think it's a juvenile thing he does. There's a real reason he does it. He gets to frame each candidate or each opponent of his however he wants. He frames them on his terms. What's the first word you think of when you think Hillary now? It's crooked Hillary. It's set in your brain. He did that. Crooked Hillary. Lion Ted. Quid pro Joe. Wacky Omarosa. It's one of my favorites. Nervous Nancy. Pencil neck Schiff. What's Elizabeth Warren's name? I don't know which will make the more entertaining general election. I think it'll be Pocahontas. I think Trump Pocahontas would be just glorious to watch. I don't know which would make the best. Rocket Man. I think my favorite is when he calls the Prime Minister of Canada Justin. Just calls him Justin. Doesn't afford him any respect at all. Just calls him Justin. But the best of them all was Jeb. What was Jeb's nickname? Low Energy Jeb. He says it, it sticks, they're done, and they can't shake it. Remember during one of the debates, this is a little exchange between Trump and Lil Marco.
I also happen to call him a lightweight, okay, and I have said that, so I would like to take that back. He's really not that much of a lightweight. And as far as, and I have to say this, he hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem.
So he apologizes for calling him a lightweight, Lil Marco. He gets to frame his opponent for everyone else. Negotiating 101. Second thing Trump does. Trump will say something, it's unprecedented, it's outrageous. But really, very few people would have heard it. But the media can't stop themselves. because they have this desire, A, to fill time, but also just to be outraged all the time. So they can't stop themselves from repeating it over and over and over and over and over again. You have entire days of coverage of the thing that President Trump said, which gives it infinite more power than it ever would have had if they just left it alone and just ignored him. And the fact that they keep doing this is great news, because it's always done to Trump's benefit. So this is the latest example. This is, I think, the first example of the year. So again, this is why I'm hopeful for this year to Trump's benefit. So this was Trump right before the Super Bowl, and he was asked about Michael Bloomberg. Now the question was not, how often do you think about Michael Bloomberg? The question was, what do you think of Michael Bloomberg?
Very little. I just think of little. You know, now he wants a box for the debates to stand on. Okay, it's okay. There's nothing wrong. You could be short. Why should he get a box to stand on, okay? He wants a box for the debates. Why should he be entitled to that? Really? Then does that mean everyone else gets a box?
Have you ever heard the claim that Michael Bloomberg wants a box? But Trump says it's so matter-of-factly, like, the guy wants a box. And everyone listening is like, yeah, he does want a box. I've never heard that ever. How good is that line? He's like, it's okay. It's okay. You can be short. You can be short. It's fine. It's fine. You can be short. Oh, it's great. So now everyone knows how tall Michael Bloomberg is. Have you given an ounce of thought to how tall Michael Bloomberg is? I have no idea how tall Michael Bloomberg is. But now everyone knows he's 5'8". I had no idea. And it's not even that. I didn't even see that original clip. But the media can't help themselves. And they just keep repeating it over and over and over and over and over again because they're so outraged. This is maybe the greatest chyron I've ever seen of all time. This is CNN. Despite Trump's claim, there's no evidence that Bloomberg is trying to get a box to stand on for the Democratic debates. Oh, that's so great. They can't figure this out. They still don't get it. I love it. It's going to be so much fun this year. They fact-checked whether or not Michael Bloomberg actually wants a box, and that itself validates the initial claim from Trump. And now it's in everyone's head that he's short, and no one's ever going to vote for a short guy for president. Even someone like Michael Bloomberg, who is just overflowing with charisma. That was sarcasm. I don't know if that was thick enough. The guy is as dry as sawdust. I'll never forget this moment. Last quick thing on the height. I'll never forget this. This was after one of the Republican debates back in 2016, and they had Bill O'Reilly walk up to the floor and do an initial post-debate interview with Donald Trump. Check out this exchange right from the very beginning.
Live at 11. I don't know who this guy is, been following me around all day. Now look, we're standing mano a mano here. You're not going to be taller than me.
That move? Did you see the move before? So O'Reilly's 6'4", Trump's 6'3". But Trump understands that it's important to be taller, more powerful. So Trump tried to stand on the debate stage to try and tower over Bill O'Reilly. But Bill O'Reilly, a man with an equal amount of awareness / bravado, saw it coming and wouldn't allow it and made sure that they were standing at the same height with each other. We don't have time now, but I'm sure this will come up again. But there's a halo effect. We may have talked about the halo effect already here, but there's a halo effect around tall people. It is true that tall people get paid more than shorter people. Tall people make up a vastly disproportionate number of CEOs, and that's because people think tall people are better leaders. I think James Madison was 5'3". We would never vote for James Madison. If James Madison was running today, the father of the Constitution, there's no way he'd win because he's just too short. And that's a shame. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that's a reality, and Trump knows that and plays to it. And he's making sure that everyone knows that one of his top opponents is short. Okay, that's that. Look forward to 2020. It's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of stories like that. We got a couple minutes here. I want to play the 2 Super Bowl ads from Trump and Bloomberg. We'll start with Trump. This is an extremely effective ad. If you didn't see it, here it is.
I'm free to hug my family. I'm free to start over. This is the greatest day of my life. my heart is just bursting with gratitude. I want to thank President Donald John Trump. Woo! Thank you.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Yeah, you can't be that. I think that's low-key maybe one of the most effective political ads I've ever seen. Could not be more concise, which is super important. Tells an entire story in just a few words. And it's a story of joy. Have you ever in your life heard a political ad where a person shouts a joyful hallelujah? She screams, hallelujah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, like you couldn't have scripted that any better. You have a black woman saying, I want to thank President Donald John Trump. Are you kidding me? And his tweet was, I promised to restore hope in America. That includes the least among us. Together, let's keep America great. That is such a rock-solid, concise, simple re-election campaign message. That's perfect. This is Michael Bloomberg's Super Bowl ad.
George started playing football when he was 4 years old. He would wake up every Saturday ready for the game. That became our life. He had aspirations about going to the NFL. On a Friday morning, George was shot. George didn't survive. I just kept saying, you cannot tell me that the child that I gave birth to is no longer here. Lives are being lost every day. It is a national crisis. I heard Mike Bloomberg speak. He's been in this fight for so long, he heard mothers crying, so he started fighting. When I heard Mike was stepping into the ring, I thought, now we have a dog in the fight. I know Mike is not afraid of the gun lobby. They're scared of him. And they should be. Mike's fighting for every child because you have a right to live. No one has a right to take your hopes and dreams.
So let's put the content aside, right? And just look at just from a purely marketing perspective, let's analyze this. Those two ads couldn't be more different. Now, Trump has the built-in benefit of being the incumbent. So he's always going to be able to talk about what he's done versus a challenger who's going to have promises, empty promises about what they'll do. So that's the first thing right there. Trump got it done versus here's what he's going to do. Those are very different things. People like to hear more about what has already happened. Trump's ad was joy. It was an ad of joy. Mike Bloomberg's ad, that was a very sad story. And I don't want to belittle it by saying it was a downer, but in the context of the moment it was played, you're going to play that ad during a Super Bowl party? Imagine you're having a Super Bowl party with your friends and that ad comes on, right? Everyone's expecting, and excited for funny ads, and every ad that comes on, people are hoping it's funnier than the last one, and then that one comes on? Like that, now you're associating Bloomberg with tragedy and sadness and just being a downer. So Trump clearly won that exchange. Quick note on the facts of Bloomberg's ad. You saw in the bold letters there, it said 2,900 children die from gun violence every year. Well, so where did he get that number? He got that number from some gun group, but the original number counted 18 and 19-year-olds. And the original report said it's 2,900 children and teens were killed by gun violence. So in the ad, they took out teens, which is very different. Because when I think children, when I say the word children, what age do you think? Or if I say, even more specifically, when I say children were killed by gun violence, how old of a child are you thinking? I'm thinking like 8, 6, maybe 10, like sort of that age. Actually, the age of the picture that they showed at the end of the ad, right? The kid was probably 9 years old at that time. But it's not, it's children and teens. You're talking 18, 19-year-olds as well, right? So he took out the teens, just called them children. And the person in that ad, yeah, they showed a picture of the kid when he was like 9, but he was 20 when he was killed. And it was gang-related, which is one of the major issues that are actually at play here, and one of the main issues with 18 and 19-year-olds as well. So if you remove 18 and 19-year-olds from the original report, you're not at 2,900 children, you're at specifically 1,499. We'll call it an even 1,500. So you're about half right there. also notable, now, because I know there's someone that's like, oh, so it's only 1,500 kids were killed, Slater, so that means guns are fine, blah, 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 blah. No, all terrible. But it's also worth noting that 2/3 of those deaths were from suicide. A lot of these gun groups, when they talk about gun violence, they include suicide in those tabulations. So they say 2,300 children killed from guns. Well, it's not all children, which means a lot of it's gang-related, and most of them are suicides. Now, these are extremely important issues. I'm not saying, oh, it's only gang-related and they're only these are, but these each require different approaches and different solutions. And Bloomberg's putting them all together with some one-size-fits-all solution of just taking away everyone's guns. That is an intellectually dishonest approach towards very serious problems. Coming up next, well, we got a lot to do. We have to have an appearance from Lameo Super Prude coming up. Let's save that to the end. Coming up next, CBS News made a very effective argument about income inequality. It's very effective. It's not true, or it's not complete, but it's very effective in terms of propaganda. So let's debunk some of that next. True story, Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, welcome back. A friendly reminder, tonight, State of the Union address. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm not usually big fans of these State of the Union addresses, but we got the impeachment going on. Hopefully it'll end tomorrow. We had the Iowa caucus debacle last night. So this is a beautifully placed time for a State of the Union address. So we're going to be anchoring that tonight. So I'll see you tonight just before 6 Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern for the President's State of the Union address. I want to give it to CBS News here. We have a ton to talk about with this. We're probably going to do a little bit today and a little bit more tomorrow. But this is a really well done piece, very effective argument. Deceiving, but effective. I also don't think the guy, whoever the reporter is who did this, I don't think he was trying to be manipulative. I don't think he's a hack. I use the word hack a lot. So a hack is someone who's purposefully manipulative. I don't think this guy's a hack. I don't think he's doing that. I think he lacked the curiosity to go out and ask where his little visual here might be lacking, and therefore he's not telling the full story. So we're going to tell the full story right now. So here it is. So he's doing a whole thing here about income inequality.
We have 5 plates.
Alrighty.
This represents everybody in America.
Okay.
So you've got your wealthiest 20% all the way down to your poorest 20%. And that is the American pie.
The pie itself represents about $98 trillion of household wealth in America. We asked people to dole it out as accurately as possible.
I guess start off with 2 slices.
On the
here.
wealthiest? Okay.
Yeah.
How many pieces of the pie would you put on the middle class?
Put 4.
4, all right. That's the middle class.
Let's do half a piece to the poorest.
Like right in the middle there?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we're going to have to move some of the wealthiest to the lower class.
How much?
2 pieces.
To the lower middle?
Lower middle class.
Okay. So can I show you what reality looks like?
Not like this, obviously.
Unfortunately not.
No one was even close.
So it's actually 9 pieces of pie.
Wow.
Yeah. 90% of the wealth is right here in the top.
That's terrible.
Now, the upper middle class and the middle class, they share 1 piece. So these guys, they've got about 80% of a piece. They get 20% of a piece. And then the lower middle class, they've got 0.3% of a piece. Yeah, they have some crumbs there. There you go. That's what they get. And the poorest, they have no pie. In fact, they have less than no pie. They actually have a bill for pie. They're in pie debt. They owe pie.
People in the poorest 20% are, on average, more than $6,000 in debt.
So very good, very well done there. I'm not going to question any of the numbers he's using. Let's just assume that all those numbers are accurate for the sake of this conversation. My point here is the lack of perspective in that presentation. First thing we got to know before we do any of this, all of that is fueled by envy. When you saw that demonstration, how did you feel? Actually, the more important question is, did you feel something at all when you saw that? I did. And that means your brain's not working. Because that analysis applies to your gut. The point is to get to your gut and your heart, but your brain is boxed out of the situation. Remember we shared this Mark Manson piece the other day about why the media is a major problem. And he wrote, if you're getting excited or worked up reading something, chances are you're being taken for a ride. That visual there was meant to get you emotionally worked up. It was made to make you feel envious. Once you get emotionally worked up, once you feel envious, then the politicians, can come in and propose a policy, try and fix that problem. That's how they open up the door. So the emotion at play there is envy. Now, envy is the fourth circle of hell in Dante's Inferno. It's not a biblical analysis, but it's a good illustration. So you got each concentric circle in Dante's Inferno goes deeper into the pit of hell. So first you have limbo, and then below that, lust, gluttony, greed, wrath, heresy, violence, fraud, and then treachery, betrayal, way down at the bottom. So envy is right about there in the middle. Two types of people hang out there. Those who hoard their money, and also those who waste their money. So in short, it's people who just spend too much time worried about and focused on and worshiping money. That's who ends up in the greed layer of hell. So that illustration that we just saw there plays on the sinful desire of they have more than me. They have too much. I need to take from them. That's all that is. Your brain's not even working, right? Your brain's not like, well, what's best for the economic growth of the whole, that's not even there at all. It's all, oh, that's not fair. They have more. And it takes all of us out of a place of gratitude. And that's where we should be living. We should all be grateful for how much we have. Instead, we start to think about how much that person has. And we start to think about all the houses and the boats that the rich people have. And they literally, at the end of this CBS News piece, they literally go to the New York City boat show where a bunch of rich investment fat cats hang out, buying new boats. That way, everyone at home who's watching this, who's feeling so envious, they know exactly who to take their envious hatred out on. Watch out when people play really on any of those sins, on any of those emotions. But politicians in particular love to play on your envy. That's all that is. Be aware of that. That way you're not going to be fooled next time. Second point, that illustration right there only shows relative wealth. It says nothing about the objective wealth of each group. There's a report that comes out every couple of years. The Heritage Foundation does this. The most recent I could find was 2011. I don't know if they've done a more recent one, but the point, I guarantee you it's only improved since the 2011 report. But it talks about those living in poverty. Now, poverty also is a very relative term, right? But today, 80% of poor homes, people living in poverty, have air conditioning. Again, I'm sure it's even higher today. That was in 2011. In 1964, during the start of the war on poverty, only 12% of people in poverty had air conditioning. So we've gone from 12% to 80%. And 1964 wasn't that long ago. That's a ridiculous leap of prosperity. 75% of people in poverty today have a car. 21% of people in poverty have 2 cars. Again, I'm sure that's improved. 2/3 have cable. Half of people had in 2011 a personal computer. I bet that's probably 80-90% of people living in poverty today. A lot of these things didn't even exist in 1964. Everyone has access to life-saving medicine and medical equipment and expertise that didn't exist in 1964. We could go on and on and on. You get the idea. So when you look at the people who are represented in that demonstration by crumbs, we think they're eating literally crumbs. That's all they have are literal crumbs. But those crumbs, each one of those crumbs, represent a quality of life that is off the charts better than someone with crumbs 50 years ago. Now, that's objectively true. Relatively, are those crumbs as delicious as someone with an entire slice of pie? No. But who are you comparing yourself to? And that's up to you. The old Ben Franklin quote, I think about this quote all the time when I get greedy. He said to be content, look backward on those who possess less than yourself, not forward on those who possess more, not more people, not the guys who are at the New York Boat Show. If this does not make you content, then you don't deserve to be happy. You can be making crumbs, but it's relative. Who are you comparing yourself to? If you're comparing yourself with the person with yachts, you're going to be miserable, absolutely miserable. But the truth is, everyone does this. The guy with the yacht looks at the guy with a bigger yacht and feels the same envy that you feel with no yacht. And it goes on and on. This is why every single year, there's always a new world's largest yacht. Because some guy, I don't even know how big yachts are these days. Like there's like a 500-foot yacht, and then some Russian oligarch comes out with a 510-foot yacht. And then like the other oil magnate needs a 512-foot yacht, right? It just gets bigger and bigger. You'd think at one point, the five guys with the biggest yachts would be like, this is good. I'm fine. I don't need another yacht 10 feet bigger. But that's because they're not looking at you with no yacht and saying, wow, thank goodness I have a yacht. They're looking at the guy with a bigger yacht. They're always comparing themselves to the person who has more, and that person doesn't deserve to be happy. So we all do that. Let's not do that. Let's stop doing that. Compare yourself to the person with less. And every single person in America can compare themselves with people who have less by looking around the world. It's a great website, globalrichlist.com. Check it out. Super easy website, super clear, globalrichlist.com. You type in your income, and it tells you where you rank in the world based on income. Now, we hear all the time, Elizabeth Warren and all the rest, they talk about the 1%. And then the richest 1%, the richest of the 1%, the 10, right? Now, if you make $1 million in income, you're in the richest 1% of America. You're also in the top 0.01% richest people in the world. You're in the top 100% of people in the world. Congratulations. But what if you only make $50,000? Because if you make 50 grand and you listen to Elizabeth Warren, then you're gonna be looking at the guy with the boat, and you're like, oh, woe is me, America's so terrible, blah, 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 blah. You make 50 grand compared to the world, you're in the richest 0.3% of people in the world. You're still in the top 1%. You're a 1%er. You make 50 grand, you're a 1%er. To fall out of the top 1%, you need to make $30,000 a year. So if you make above $30,000 a year, you're still in the richest 1% of people in the world, let alone people in world history. And that's only based on income. You can't even compare. Like we have a polio vaccine. People not that long ago didn't have a polio vaccine. So you can't even really just compare the improvement of our standard of living just based off of income alone. So what's your perspective? We'll talk more about it tomorrow. We got many more aspects of this. And we're gonna, this is a big deal because Bernie, Elizabeth, Buttigieg, all these guys are all about income inequality. So we got to be able to debunk this like that. So we'll talk more about income mobility tomorrow. And then also, what's the left's alternative to this system? I'll give you a hint. It's worse. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. I know I might be a little late to this party, but I think it's worth discussing further anyway. We have a character on my radio show that we're going to introduce to the TV show right now. It's my alter ego. So I, Mike Slater, if it's not super obvious to you and you haven't learned this yet, I am super hip. And so I'm really cool. And I'm a millennial. So I am down with my peeps. I'm so not square. I am down with the culture and the youth. But my alter ego, his name's Lameo Superprude. And he loves to come in and rain on all the cool kids' parade. I try to keep him away, but he's got to come in, butt in, and ruin everyone's fun. So some hip, cool things going on. Here comes Lameo Superprude, being all lame, being all prude, throwing some cold water on everyone's fun. So today, Lameo Superprude would like to take a couple minutes to talk about the Super Bowl halftime show. Now, me personally, Mike Slater, I am all for female empowerment. I love female empowerment. And if what we saw at the halftime show, if that was female empowerment, you know who else loves female empowerment? Old, horny men and 14-year-old boys. They're all about, it's odd how much they're also for female empowerment. So, all seriousness, I have a theory. We should take some time one day to spell this out more, but here's my theory. My theory is that there is a cabal of misogynistic men, right? A cabal, so there's like a secretive group of men who hate women, and they're the ones who are actually pulling the strings of the feminist movement. They're the ones who are getting women to do things that horny men want women to do in the name of feminism, right? They wouldn't, like, if these men said, women, we want you to do this, women would slap them across the face and say, no way, I'm not gonna dance across the stage half naked. Get out of here, you pervert, and they'd slap the men across the face. But if the cabal could convince women to say, oh, it's female empowerment to dance half naked across the stage on a stripper pole, then the women are like, oh yeah, female empowerment, and they're gonna go do it. And the men up in the cabal are like, worked again. Abortion's the best example. What is abortion? Why would this cabal of misogynistic men like abortion? So that they can sleep around with as many women as they want and not have any consequences. But they couldn't just come out with that, right? These men couldn't come out and say, hey, we want to kill your babies. We want to sleep with all you women. We want to get you all pregnant, and we don't want to have any consequences of that, so we're just going ahead and kill all the babies. Then they'd be like, no, you can't do that. That's outrageous. But if the cabal of men could convince some feminist women, pay them off, convince feminist women to make it a feminist thing to be pro-abortion, then all the women are like, oh, my body, my choice, abortion's wonderful, I need it. And the men at the top are saying, yes, this is great. See what I'm saying? I'll give you a small example. Last week, we talked with Rob Henderson. He made the point that there's way more women in college than men. It's way, way more. Like for every 100 men in college, there's like 130 women on average. So there's fewer men in the college dating pool. So because of that, women actually take on the dating preferences of the few men who are there. In other words, they sleep around more, right? So this actually, having more women in college actually helps men, at least when it comes to the wanting to sleep around part, right? Wanting to sleep around with no commitment necessary. So Rob Henderson's point was that if you actually want to help women, you need more men in college, which is the opposite of what the feminists say. All right. Here's the latest example of this. Same thing with the Super Bowl. What feminist, what woman decided that this is female empowerment? So I have a 2-year-old daughter, almost 2, Grace. Like, who's the dad who's like, daughter, I can't wait. Here, Grace, come, hop up here. Watch this. Do you see that? I can't wait till you're old enough. And you two can get up on stage on a stripper pole and swing around with people below you pretending to have an orgy. I'll just be so proud. My daughter, my little girl. I can only hope that's you one day, daughter. Like, who is that? I don't get that. That doesn't exist. There was some commercial during the Super Bowl in the first half for makeup or something. And they had female astronauts. Remember that? It was like red. It was like a red color scheme and the female astronauts. And it was about making space for women in science. And it was something like they'll donate $1 for every thing you buy for female coders. Something like that. So you look at that and you're like, okay, girls, like, here's the message. Girls, here's an academic pursuit. 10 minutes later, hey, girls, if that doesn't work out, here's a totally different kind of pursuit. Go ahead and thrust your vagina into the camera for millions of adoring fans. You have your choice. You can code and no one will praise you, or you can go ahead and dance on the stripper pole. Right? We get all this, don't treat me like a sex object as I entirely act just like a sex object. Ridiculous. In all seriousness, Jack, my son, he's 3, he soaks up everything. Saturday night, putting him to bed. And I said, hey, Jack, we're going to church tomorrow. And he said, oh, you know what? I usually make fun of these. My kids the other day told me that global warming, my 4-year-old yesterday told me that global warming, actually, Chris Murphy had one just a little bit ago. I retweeted it because it was so perfect. This is Chris Murphy, senator from Connecticut. My 11-year-old just nearly had a heart attack when he saw the exit polls in Iowa saying healthcare was the #1 issue. Not climate change, he moans. It's like the house is on fire and all people care about is doing renovations. No, your 11-year-old did not say that, you idiot. So I almost felt like I'm setting up one of those scenarios. I'm not. This actually happened. He said, Daddy, can I pass the tray for communion to you? He said it on Saturday night. I said, we're going to church tomorrow. He said, Daddy, can I pass the tray for communion to you? We've never said a word about communion to him. I've never said the word communion around him one time. We've never talked about the tray. We've never talked about communion. He just absorbed all of it just from being in church and just hearing it a few times. Kids are sponges. Now, knowing that, Lameo Super Prude knew that there were 2 commercials coming up with drag queens, and he had the clicker in his hand, the remote, so every time they were about to come up, he could just pop the channel. So his 2 and 3-year-old didn't have to watch that. So then the halftime show came on, and I'm thinking, all right, maybe this isn't going to be so bad. I'll give it a chance. J-Lo is 50 after all. So remember, you saw it, the camera pans, it's out far away, and then it zooms in, and within 2 seconds, Shakira has her legs spread and is doing the crotch thrust toward the camera. It's like, all right, well, that's enough. That's enough of that. I hear people who say it's, it's cultural. Oh, Slater being such a square. It's like Hispanic culture, that type of dance, that belly dancing, whatever. And I hear that. I really do. There were moments of that, right? When Shakira does, I was going to do it for you. I'm going to spare you that. But when Shakira does like her side hip shake thing or whatever, that's fine. Even the seductive belly dancing thing, it's totally fine. Really, I have no problem with that. It's the hip thrust where you get into the softcore porn territory. I remember way back in the day, a friend of mine was watching America's Next Top Model. I would never. Please. A friend was watching. And Tyra Banks, I guess, that's what he said. Who knows what he really saw. But Tyra Banks was teaching these girls how to pose, and she said, oh, this is how you pose for a fashion magazine. This is how you pose for a porno magazine. And the only difference was her legs were spread. That's the world of difference. And that's what last night was, or Super Bowl night. There's sexy dancing, totally fine. And then there's a guy grinding behind a 50-year-old mom with her 11-year-old daughter on stage. What are we doing here? Matt Walsh hit it right. He said, I'm not shocked. I'm not outraged. Right? That's not what this is. They do this every year. So it's entirely predictable. And they do it just to get more attention. And then people like me come on and say, oh, you shouldn't do that. And then they come back and they say, oh, you're a prude. Right? I get the whole thing. As Matt Walsh says, they do it every year. They bring in an aging, irrelevant pop star and invite her to debase herself on stage for 12 minutes in an effort to reclaim the sort of attention she once attracted back before she was a AARP member. So I get it. Not shocked, not outraged. Doesn't make it acceptable, doesn't make it appropriate. And it can't possibly be too much to ask to have an act that is appropriate for everyone to watch. That can't possibly be. So who was for that halftime show? Horny men and 14-year-old boys. Hooray for empowerment. Give me a break. Hey, State of the Union, tonight, just before 9 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to be anchoring it. So I hope you can join us. We'll see you tonight. True story, Mike Slater, spread the word.